Hello, Texas, and welcome to a candid conversation about what powers modern life. If you're looking for facts about our energy landscape and how oil and natural gas provides energy security for our state, nation, and allies around the globe, you've come to the right place. This is TXOGA Talks, where energy meets insight. Welcome back to TXOGA Talks, a podcast brought to you by the Texas Oil and Gas Association. I'm Todd Staples. I'm fortunate to serve as your host. And for those of you that may be new to the show, TXOGA's members produce about 90% of our state's crude oil and natural gas. They are responsible for a vast majority of our state's refineries, our LNG facilities, pipelines, and of course, our state's leading service companies or members as well. And our mission is pretty simple. It's to advocate for sound science-based policies and free market principles to keep our industry robust so they can deliver the power that literally powers our lives. On TXOGA Talks and throughout my career, I've been very fortunate to interview some amazing people who have accomplished a tremendous amount. And today's guest certainly fits that category. Our guest today started her public service as a member of the Texas House of Representatives. She became our state's treasurer, and from that post, she was the first woman elected to represent Texas in the United States Senate, where she served for nearly 2 decades. After the Senate, she represented the United States of America as ambassador to NATO during President Trump's first term. Of course, many of you have already guessed that our guest today is Kay Bailey Hutchison. Senator Hutchison, welcome to TXOGA Talks.
Thank you so much, Todd. I'm so glad to be with you. And you and I campaigned together. We served Texas together as you were a great ag commissioner and did so much for our ag industry when you were there. And now I'm so glad you're doing the oil and gas and the energy producers, because of course that's what's so important to our country right now.
Well, it is so important, and we did have a lot of fun. We covered many of the state's 254 counties together, and it's just a refreshing exercise to meet Texans and to go all over our state. And Senator, I just have to think, after accomplishing as much as you have, and in the many roles that you served, a lot of people might be satisfied to coast, but I've never seen that in your DNA. You've been at the forefront in every office and on so many positions. And now you're leading the way and bringing together energy stakeholders at all levels through the Kay Bailey Hutchison Energy Center at the University of Texas at Austin. And I know that's your proud alma mater. And as an Aggie, we had fun going a little Aggie Longhorn around the state. We may get to do a little bit more this fall, I think, football wise.
Oh, golly, we are so tight as leaders in Texas. And of course, we honored one of your great graduates last year. And we are just so excited to have all the people who are doing the great things in energy and security. And so I loved working with you and love keeping on.
Well, we'll certainly have fun today. And I'm so excited to visit with you about the Energy Center at the University of Texas. And I'm just wondering, how did the center come together? And can you give us a little background on how that got started?
Yes, I was really so pleased when John Beckworth, who was a professor, but also a banker from Houston, a professor at UT Austin Law School, and taught oil and gas, and was just instrumental. And well, in fact, his father was a state senator. Probably you knew his father, Senator Beckworth, but having him come to me and say, we're thinking at Texas about putting together the law school with the business school and having an energy center that will give our students the leg up going out into the industry so that lawyers will know more about the business side, and of course, the business school needing to have that area of expertise that the lawyers bring in regulations and Texas law. So they came and said, we want this at UT and we want to name it for you. I said, done. I am so happy to work with this because, of course, when I was in the Senate for 20 years, I certainly got to know the oil and gas industry, but also all of the regulatory hurdles that oil and gas has always been put through. And then, of course, while I was in the Senate, we started really developing other sources like wind and solar, the renewables, and now we're doing even more. So I was very excited to be able to do that from the beginning. And then, as you know, we added 2 more schools that I think make us really unique in America for an academic energy center, and that is that we also have the Cockrell School of Engineering, and so petroleum engineering, of course, and then we have the geosciences, the Jackson School, and that's where critical minerals are now so important in energy production, and especially for making batteries bigger and more powerful to support the new renewables. So it's all coming together, and I have so much fun with this because I have a lot of interaction with our academics and with our business people and our students. It's just been a wonderful experience, and I'm so glad that they came to me with saying, "We want to name it for you." And I said, "Great." And so we've been on now for 10 years, and it's really been fun.
Well, your leadership does make a difference, I know, and it really intrigued me to find out that you were using this interdisciplinary approach because I'm from being involved in the energy industry myself in oil and gas. A single well involves a landman, a lawyer, an engineer, a banker, a regulator before the first truck ever rolls. And so bringing law students and business students and engineers and geoscientists together is a crafty approach, and I think the one that makes the industry stronger and gives a broader perspective. And really, at the end of the day, it's about the students, I think, and how they're equipped to go out. And I'd like to maybe talk about those students when they walk across the stage and they finish the program. What types of careers are the graduates pursuing that you're seeing today?
Well, I'm so glad you asked that because what we are trying to do with something that, again, I don't think any other university in America is doing, and that is an energy minor, so that anyone in any of our schools on campus, if they think, well, maybe there's something I'd like to do in the energy sector for a career, we have an energy minor that will show students from the first levels of all 4 of our schools. So, of course, business and law, but also the geosciences and then the petroleum engineering and the other forms, mechanical engineering, all of those things that go into making the new forms of energy. And because we have that energy minor, a student can go to school all summer. They will go to classes that are prescribed so that you get a feel for each of the different sectors for 4 days a week. And then the 5th day is a trek. So we will take the students to Houston to talk to energy industries, to Midland, to Abilene, where they're making another nuclear reactor that's going to be very different, and it's in a trial period now. So we are looking at that. We have a computational computer fellows that talk about what a computational computer can do in the energy business to make it more efficient, but also the computational computer on campus is doing a virtual twin of the building of this new nuclear reactor that has been one of only 2 in the country that the Nuclear Regulatory Commission has approved. And they're doing a virtual twin so that when the nuclear facility is finished, there will be then a program already set so that we can give it or send it or sell it to any country or company that wants to buy this pattern and be able to build their own small nuclear reactor, which hopefully down the road means they won't go on the public grid and crowd out the homes and retailers that are using the public grid. If we can give them a source that is doable and affordable to create their own energy. So we're doing a lot of things that are in the next generation of opportunity. And we try to show the students that with the full summer, 2 semesters of the first classes to familiarize themselves with the different kinds of energy, and then they can go finish their minor with one course that is an elective in the fall and one in the spring, and they're certified by our great McCombs Business School in the energy minor. So the students are going to be able to look at all of the energy opportunities. And since we started this program, Todd, some of the students have changed their majors and they're going into energy when they were in a different school, not even sure what they wanted to do. And now they're seeing that future. And of course, energy is the basis of our economy today, and it's the basis of our national security as well.
Well, that's a space that you know well about. And what you're describing is really amazing because you're taking all these disciplines together and you are addressing the real issues that are affecting people's lives today. There is a big demand for power. There's a big demand for the build out to satisfy that power. And it's exciting to hear about the programs that you have here at the Energy Center that are designed specifically to meet the demands of modern America today. And to think that we're secure in our own energy needs in America, but that we're also meeting the needs around the globe is a phenomenal position to be in. And I think it seems fitting to me that you're now in this role at the Energy Center because when you arrived in the United States Senate in the early 90s, the story of American energy was scarcity. I mean, what we're describing today is energy abundance and how to manage new forms of energy and integrate those forms of energy with our traditional oil and gas and the ever important role that it continues to play. But, when you were starting the Senate, it seemed like we were importing more oil every year and energy dependence was a remote theme. And now, over the course of your career, Texas has turned that on its head. The energy boom is following the shale revolution that changed the industry. And so I'm thinking maybe just to look back, if you can, and share with us your perspective on watching how this industry changed over the years. And what was it like being in the position to negotiate the laws on the books that have supported America's stake as the world's leading reliable energy producer?
Yes, it has been quite a journey, which as well, because when early days in the Senate, I was trying to protect oil and gas because it is the core of our energy capabilities. It's the most reliable and also the cleanest that we can do. And so that was trying to protect our industry. But then, of course, in came the renewables that also Texas is the leader in using wind and solar. And it was it was a great Aggie, George Mitchell, who did the shale revolution, which opened up old areas that we thought were done. Midland was kind of dried up. East Texas was kind of dried up, and South Texas as well. But then with shale and the innovation of that, now Texas is the leading producer of energy in the world. And that is so exciting. But it's also opened the door for all of these other capabilities. And now we're looking at, well, let me go back and say we couldn't even export liquefied natural gas when I was in the Senate. And then that turned as well. So that became a booming business where we have such an abundance of liquefied natural gas. And we have been now the leaders in that export, and that's fairly new. So our reserves are quite abundant, and it's very important that we keep those, and be able to be the purveyor for our allies so that they're not relying on countries like Russia or Iran to have their basic energy needs met. And all of that is because we have the abundance of natural resources. But the other part is that we have had good regulatory systems so that Europe did not have good regulatory systems, so they didn't go into their own production. We did, and we have been able to do better. However, our regulatory system is not perfect because administrations have differed. So we've started with a good regulatory environment, but then another administration comes in and puts clamps on refineries or clamps on pipelines. And we need to always be thinking of the way that America can be the best and do it right. Obviously, we would be the cleanest of all producers of energy, but we also need to have a regulatory environment where we can do the refinery upgrades and expansions so that we can also help our allies buy clean energy. So we've been the leader as America is, but we still have a lot that we can do that would be even more important. And then we haven't even gone into the technology, but AI is transforming the need for more reliable energy.
Well, you certainly hit on the spots that I think makes America unique and that has enabled us to be the leading producer in the world. And that is a regulatory environment that treats oil and gas and energy as an asset, not a liability. And we don't see that all around the world. And we certainly don't see it in states today, even in America. And I think that's why Texas is so well positioned to produce 42 to 43% of our nation's crude oil and almost 30% of our natural gas. And we want to make certain that the regulatory environment here in Texas continues to enable Texas to be a leader. I want to shift just for a moment. It's amazing to me that you were ambassador to NATO. I think that was like 2017 to 2020, somewhere in that time frame. You saw some tense years there. I think you it's fair to say you saw firsthand what happens to nations that do not control their own energy future and their own energy supply. I think about Germany's dependence on Russian gas, and how that kind of became a live case study during your time in Brussels, and even what we're seeing today. I say it, and I think you said it here, that energy security is national security. And I'll note for our listeners that when the senator was in Brussels, the liquefied natural gas leaving the ports on the Texas Gulf Coast was becoming a part of that security picture. Texas molecules backing up our friends overseas. So, Senator, how did your experience shape your view of NATO, and what's your time at NATO? What did that teach you about the cost of getting energy security wrong?
Oh, huge. Todd, as you know, the Germany was completely dependent on Russian oil and gas, as was many of the other countries in the European continent. And the, their regulatory scheme was so harsh that they didn't even try to produce their own, even though Germany could have done more with its own assets. And even I was talking to someone who had done a lot of geological surveying and was saying that the geology in the sea around England is the same as Norway. And of course, Norway has gone gangbusters on producing their own energy, and and yet London, England would not. UK did not. So, they have so much capability, but they didn't use it. Then, of course, when Russia invaded Ukraine, that really showed the Europeans that, except for France, France was in nuclear by then, and they did not have that reliance. But all the others around that did suffered greatly, and they did immediately stop the import of the Russian oil and gas, well, to a great extent. It's not even all cut off, because in the winter they just have not been able to do enough. And when America, uh, the Biden administration, unfortunately, stopped the export of LNG at the same time that we were trying to get the Germans and the other Europeans not to buy from Russia, and it put them in a terrible squeeze. I never could understand why someone in the Biden administration didn't understand that that was just a non sequitur, but they didn't. And so the Europeans were put in a very terrible position. And I think they realize that now. So they are beginning to look at, of course, buying from us, which many of them are doing, but we had to reconstitute the export facilities for LNG, and they had to build more of the receptors for that. So that's now happening, and this winter should be much better. But it just doesn't make sense for any of us now that we are warned about Russia's unreliability as at best, and criminality at worst, um, and having the ability to buy from America and producing themselves, and buying from the countries in the Middle East who are not terrorists. So you wouldn't buy from Iran, but hopefully, but there are, of course, the Saudis and the Qataris and UAE that produce quite a bit and can export out if we can settle this with Iran. So it all does become part of global security, and thank goodness America has never stopped producing for ourselves, but now we need to do more to assure that we have allies that have the basic energy needs as well.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're benefiting today from hearing from former Senator and U.S. Ambassador Kay Bailey Hutchison, and we're talking about energy dominance, energy power, making certain we have energy abundance to meet our domestic needs and those of our allies across the globe. We're going to take a short break to hear from our sponsor, and we'll be right back where we're going to discuss the KBH Energy Center's premier event, the 2026 Energy Symposium. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Neil Carlton, President of the TXOGA Insurance Agency. The TXOGA Insurance Agency is pleased to sponsor today's episode of the TXOGA Talks podcast. TXOGA members have access to the TXOGA Safety Group with Texas Mutual and get a premium discount of 12.4%, as well as the possibility to earn 2 dividends. Participants also have access to unique safety tools to keep their team safe and on the job. Visit TXOGAinsurance.com for more information.
And we're back today talking with Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison, a longtime great leader for Texas. We're discussing the KBH Energy Center at UT Austin. And Senator, every September, the center convenes for its annual Energy Symposium. And I know that this symposium has grown into really one of the premier energy events in the country. And so if you could take us back to the beginning, what was the idea behind launching an annual symposium?
It was always in the cards to have this annual symposium, and it was to convene the leaders in the field, in all of the fields of energy, and have panels that talk about kind of what's new in the field. And we have just had some of the greatest programs where people come, and of course, there's a lot of camaraderie and a lot of time for people to talk to each other, but also on the panels, we look at what people are doing. And we've had some of the greatest people who talk about what basins are still open, what is the most prolific, what is like carbon sequestration. Vicki Hollop did a piece on that, and she's coming back this year as well. The just retired CEO of Oxy Petroleum, and she is terrific. And she's really gone into the carbon sequestration and the use of it and protection of it. And we've had people talk about the new forms of energy that are coming on, like we did the nuclear reactors way back, talking about what was important, and the one that's being built in Abilene, where there's very little waste. So there's no nuclear waste, and it's the only one that's being built that recycles its own excess water. So we're in the forefront on that. And then the computational computer that's doing the virtual twin. We have fellows that are talking to our students to show them how that computational computer can be done in energy with AI, of course, but also with other forms of efficiencies. And then we've done geothermal is rarely done because it's generally more expensive, but we have a panel on that is looking for the ways to make it more affordable. And of course, on wind and solar, we do a piece on the critical minerals and how at the geological schools, they're really looking for new minerals, new critical minerals that might be able to make batteries more resilient and really reliable when we don't have wind and sun. And so we're looking at all of the areas and trying to bring out what's new. And everyone leaves our symposium saying, gosh, I learned something that I didn't know, some new thing, a lot of new things. And so I think with Mike Worth this year, as our honoree, Jag Palasia, our executive director, is going to moderate a discussion with him on what Chevron is doing, because they're one of the leaders in the field of doing more in throughout, like Venezuela, like some of the other places around the world that with the fracking, they're able to open up. And I think that we'll be hearing from Gloria Moncrief at Montex in Fort Worth, who's drilling deeper now in the Gulf. And she's really in the forefront of doing something very expensive and new, and trying to see if there is more underneath where we have been in the Gulf of Mexico before. And so we will hear from her. Dan Yergin, who wrote the prize, The History of Oil and Gas in America, is going to be interviewed by Will Imboden, our Texas provost. And he, of course, is the guru on the trail of oil and gas from the very beginning to where we are now. And Dan is just amazing. I've been with him on many occasions, and his vast knowledge is just unsurmountable. And so he'll be in our program as well. And we have Dan Bouillette, and Dan is the former Secretary of Energy, and he really knows the business so well, and he knows the what is involved in what puts together and transports energy. He really understands better than anybody I've ever heard talk about the supply line and what happens when the price of one thing goes up and what it does to the whole supply line. So he'll be on our panel as well. So we've got a lot of different areas of our oil and gas, but also the other fields of energy, and there'll be something new that's happening out there that people want to hear.
Well, you certainly have put together a who's who of American energy for your symposium this year, Senator. Congratulations to you. Every single person you mentioned as a leader, they're a game changer. They're on the cutting edge of delivering the power that makes our lives go around every day. So, what an exciting group that you've put together. I'm thinking about our listeners right now who have an interest in oil and gas and energy abundance. Um, Tell us who the audience of the symposium is, and if someone's listening today that might want to be there in person, how they might register.
Yes, absolutely. It's going to be at the AT&T Center in Austin, which is right across from the campus, and we welcome people who are in the business. We'll have another panel on energy finance, the startups and the people who are helping to finance the new drilling and the packaging. So we've got everything covered in the whole energy spectrum. And if anyone would like to sign up, they can go to our website, which is the K. Bailey Hutchison Energy Center at the University of Texas at Austin. It's easy to get to, and then it'll have the program, the stars that are going to be talking and interviewed. And the wonderful thing about these, and we had our 10th anniversary 2 years ago. The wonderful thing is that there's such a mixture. There's just a vibrance and people talking to each other, and they go into little groups and they talk about what they're doing, and they ask questions of the other people who are there. And there's just an electricity in the room as they listen, and then they'll go out and have a break and snacks or coffee or water or juice. And there are lots of times that they can just talk about what they've learned and talk about like the new things like geothermal. There's a lot of interest in that, and of course the small nuclear reactors, and then now talking about these fields that are the data centers that are kind of getting some pushback. And so people want to hear about that and how we can make sure that we stay in the forefront, because we've got to be nationally competitive against countries that don't have regulations at all, like China. And they're doing a lot with these energy fields, and we need to be able to make sure that we have a place for them and that they are welcomed, because we need to keep our grids open for the residential use and the small business use. And I think a lot of this innovation is giving companies the ability to provide their own energy so that they don't have to go on the grid. So there's a lot that's out there. We hope people will hear this and decide that they want to come and see some of the other people in the industry and the business. And also, if you pick up one or two things, it's worth coming, because that will then maybe guide you in a different direction, or give you some partners that might want to work with you in something that you're doing.
Networking opportunities like you described it is so important to have those conversations, make those direct contacts, and you've created a great venue to do that at the AT&T Hotel and Conference Center here in Austin at the UT campus. That we use that facility quite often for a lot of our programs, and it is so conducive to making a successful program. Now I'm gonna make sure I have the date right, Senator. Is it Friday, September the 11th? Is that the correct date?
That is the correct date, and we're also going to have a little commemoration at the end of the day on 9/11, because this is the 25th anniversary of 9/11 and that horrible day where everyone remembers where they were. I was in the Senate, and so I'm on that panel talking to Will and Bowden, and the Clements Center is working on that program. The Clements Center for Security at the University of Texas is wonderful, and they are going to take that program and talk about how far we've come, about 9/11, what happened that day, and I can talk about where I was with my Senate staff when the Capitol was in the uh, potential of being hit. And I think that talking about how far we've come in making sure that we tightened up our security after that dreadful day. And so there will be that commemoration with the Clements Center and the KBH Energy Center together, talking about um, what what happened that day, but also what we learned and how we have firmed up our aviation security, of course, our airport security, just security in general. We're now used to it. If you go to an airport, you're going to be going through a lot more security than before 9/11. So, yes, it is September 11th, and it's all day from 8 in the morning. Mike Worth is on at 8 Worth with Jack Balasia at 8 o'clock that morning, and then it goes all through the day with uh, 12 or 14 panels of people that are experts in all these different areas. So, and there are a lot of breaks so that people can visit and learn from each other as well. So we're excited about it. It's such a wonderful day, and we just are excited to be able to put it on and have the people come and be with us. And I hope everybody will go online and look, register, because you do have to register to get in because we have security. But other than that, it's pretty easy, and we hope that people will come and contribute.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, listening today, to start out your day, listening to Mike Worth and Jack Balasia is a pretty special time. I know Jack is no fading violet. He really is a hard charger and has done a lot. So the conversation between those two leaders will be very good. We're talking about the KBH Energy Center annual symposium Friday, September the 11th at the AT&T Hotel and Conference Center. And what a great time to commemorate the unity of America that came together on 9/11, to remember the lives that were lost and to remember what it means to be an American. And I hope that on all the topics we've discussed, Senator, that really people want to come together as Americans to grow, to make certain that the next generation of Americans have the same opportunities that we've had. And I know that your work here at the center is helping facilitate that. And I want to zoom out before I go, because you've seen energy from the floor of the United States Senate. You've seen energy at the negotiating table of NATO. And right now you're obviously on the front row of energy education. So from your time of public service to your work today at the center, what do you see as the most pressing energy challenge or challenges today and that we might be seeing in the future?
I think it is the swiftness of AI taking such a hold on our information gathering. That means energy is at the forefront of providing the capability to get that, but we've also got to make sure that it's reliable, that it is reliable information. And I think we're learning that we have to manage it, and it takes a lot of people to assure that the sources are correct. And so I would say that's the challenge right now, is to make sure that AI is working for people, that is working for those who can learn from it, but not taking it over. And we want to make sure that we do thread that needle just right. And then, of course, we have to have the support of the people of our country, that this is an urgent need for our country to have reliable energy, because our competition is not Arkansas and Oklahoma and New York and California. It's China, it's North Korea, it's Iran, it's Russia, it's people who want to do us ill. And we've got to be strong to stand up for being the best, being in the forefront, being the one that can produce the best outcome, that has the best security, that has the best intelligence. And so we're all in this together as America. And we have a challenge. It's a big one. It's a revolution that we've got to be in, all pulling in the same direction.
Well, you've identified some very real threats and that are on people's minds. And I think your perspective, Senator, of making certain that the new technologies and the new advancements are working for Americans and not against them really hits the real tone, because there are very valid concerns today about water use, about electricity availability, and the oil and gas industry. I know that we are a highly regulated industry, and we want all industries to have a science-based approach and to be fair and not be punitive, but that it to make certain that it's working for the people of our country. I think that's a great perspective. And to wrap up on working for the people of our country, I think about the leaders that will be leaving the KBH Energy Center, working for the future energy sources of America. I know that all the forms of energy that we mentioned today are an energy mix that meets our needs. I often get asked, what is the energy source for the future? And I tell people, I don't know exactly what that energy source is, but I can tell you our energy companies today that are delivering that power will be the ones delivering that in the future, because they have that long-term vision. And I'm excited about that. So as we think about that future, how can we support these students and these new leaders as they emerge from the center and prepare their careers for energy?
That's exactly what we are trying to do, is make sure that we show the students. 5 years ago, students didn't even want to go into energy. They didn't want to go into oil and gas. It just seemed boring to them. And now we are building a base of students who are excited about energy, who are excited about the technology, but they're also excited about production. And now we've got to also talk about the importance of pipelines and how pipelines can be more efficient as a clean way to get our energy out there. We've got to talk about refineries that have the capacity to turn the raw material into plastic, into the natural gas, into the gasoline, the things that we need to propel. So there's so many areas in energy that are so exciting and new, and our students of today have the ability to drive that innovation. And we want to make those students have the first step out of college, and then the companies will have students who already know what is possible and then can take it to the next step. That is a very important part of our mission, is to turn over students that aren't just saying, oh, well, where does natural gas come from? Well, they're not going to be neophytes in energy. They're going to know that part. And then they're going to start thinking of, like George Mitchell did, oh, well, I wonder if there's a way to get more out of our fields and out of our earth that people hadn't thought about. Who would have thought of doing water on rock and opening more capability? But he started doing that. And so we want the next George Mitchell to come up. We want the next innovator in building a lithium ion battery to find that new critical mineral that might be better than lithium or less expensive than lithium to give us the wind and solar that can be reliable. And that's what we're trying to produce and put out for our companies to be the innovators that take us the next step.
Well, I think our future is bright, Senator. I believe that our nation, our state can continue to lead in this world. I think the type of students that are coming out of your program are going to be equipped to meet the challenges of the future. And we live in a competitive world, and we've been pretty successful over the last several decades, thanks to good leadership and men and women in the industry that deliver every single day, so that we have the products that we need. And it's just been a real honor having former United States Senator and Ambassador KBH Hutchison on TXOGA Talks. Senator, it's great to spend time with you. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, Todd, I can't wait to see you in person again, and we'll work on this together.
I look forward to it. And ladies and gentlemen, tune in and sign up for the symposium on September 11th. I think it's something that you certainly won't want to miss. And until next time, this has been TXOGA Talks, where energy meets insight.
The views expressed on this podcast are not intended and should not be construed to be the views of any particular TXOGA member or company. The purpose of this podcast is to engage in candid conversations about energy needs, energy security, and the future of energy.